Hi, good evening to all our friends and supporters out there. We're going to be addressing a very important issue. There's a lot of anti Semites and Jew haters of different forms and shapes and tones that have been saying what Israel has been conducting in Gaza has been horrific, a genocide. Um, Another Holocaust, they say. Pierce Morgan goes on and says repeatedly um, he's not sure what the proportional response should be to a declaration of war against Israel where they butcher and slaughter Jews. They cross over, not only members of Hamas, but regular civilians come over and just butcher and slaughter Jews, behead babies. The worst kind of atrocities that we have had, the Jewish people have had since the Holocaust. And when Israel responds, he says that's not a proportional response. This is an anti Semitic trope, obviously, double standards against Israel and the Jewish people, how they should defend themselves. But I have with me Mayor Jolovitz, Mideast expert, and we're going to be discussing this very important issue. Mayor, proportionality, what do you do when you're attacked by people who are bent on your total destruction?
Yeah. This has been happening now for two generations at least.
Mhm.
Israel, victorious in 67, everyone thought it was a military victory, no less than the victories we saw in biblical times. In
Right.
73, Israel was attacked in Yom Kippur, and by the grace of God and a stroke of good luck, Israel was able to survive and wasn't destroyed. But it seems since then, for two generations, Israel's been fighting this war. I've described it before as Israel seems to fight, even during its kinetic engagements with its enemies, it's been fighting a political war rather than a military war. All of a sudden, Israel is, when I say all of a sudden, for two generations now, Israel is concerned about what the world might say about Israel's victories.
Mhm.
And I had cited, I think, on one of the podcasts that I did with you, Jabotinsky, the great Zev Jabotinsky, wrote a piece called um, uh, Excess Apology, in
Mhm.
response to excess apology. In 1911, he wrote, and he basically said that the only answer, who are they to hold us to account, and who are we that need to explain to them why, in fact, we choose to exist? And this was in 1911, mind you. And the answer that he gave at the time was that we need to tell them to go to hell. And that's exactly what I'm going to suggest here also. This
Mhm.
disproportionate response, this nonsense. Israel has been, and I blame Israel completely, Israel has been trying to appease an unappeasable world, an unappeasable enemy, an unappeasable. All of a sudden, we have the BBC, we've got CNN, we've got the European Union, we've got the United Nations, and now we have the United States complaining about the fact that Israel isn't fighting a war that where the results were proportional. Well, I've mentioned this on your broadcast before, and I'll mention it again with absolutely no apology. Absolutely no apology. The way that wars ought to be fought. These are wars that if Israel would lose, Israel would cease to be. And the way that they need to be fought is, and I don't think that there's a person out there who's sane who wouldn't agree with this. I want as many of the enemy dead and as few of my own dead. It's that simple. The greater the ratio, the better. I want all my enemy dead. I want none of my soldiers, my sons, my brothers, my fathers, and everything else dead. It's an absurdity for us to have to do this. Now, it's interesting. I just want to mention something. A throwback in 2015, Benny Gantz, who thought he was going to be prime minister one day, he was the chief of staff in 2014
Mhm.
during Operation Protective Edge in Gaza. In 2015, he was explaining that when they received rocket fire from the Al Wafah hospital in Gaza City, that Israel could have just returned artillery fire and destroyed them, but he was afraid of collateral damage that would be criticized by the BBC and such. So he admitted in this interview that is available on the internet in English, a poor English, but in English nonetheless, that he risked his own Golani soldiers in hand-to-hand fighting in order not to have collateral damage where the enemy was going to die, and all of a sudden the world was going to criticize Israel. Well, at the time, Bibi Netanyahu criticized him, and he criticized him because Benny Gantz, twice in this speech that he gave, actually said that it was the moral thing to do. This is the perversion, that it was the moral thing to do. So Bibi, a political opponent, of course, adversary of Benny Gantz, criticized Benny Gantz. Well, on January 8th of this year, less than a month ago, while interviewed by The Economist from the UK,
Right.
Benjamin Netanyahu was trying to explain, when criticized for this disproportionate response to the Arabs, why are so many Arabs dying and so few Jews? Imagine that. Why are so few Jews dying? As if they would be satisfied if more Jews had died.
Right.
And his response was, we could have done what the Allies did in World War II. We could have carpet bombed, and we didn't carpet bomb because, in essence, he was implying we're a moral people. We're a moral nation. We fight moral wars, which I've argued time and again in my lectures. That isn't a moral war. That's an immoral war. When all of a sudden the life of your own soldiers, your sons, your daughters, your fathers are less important than the lives of the enemy, that's an immoral war. So Bibi got himself in trouble when he actually admitted on January 8th to The Economist, and he said Israeli soldiers were killed because we decided not to carpet bomb the enemy. So let me go back by way of reference to the carpet bombing that the United States and the Allies, including the UK, were involved in during the Second World War. In 1939, there were 71 million Germans. Of the 71 million Germans, we know that 90% of the German population supported Hitler, 90%. But only 5.7 million were actually Nazi members, Nazi party members.
Right.
8% of the German population were considered Nazi party members. And yet the United States and the Allies, the British, and bombed the hell out of Europe, bombed the hell out of Germany, unapologetically, and it was the moral thing to do.
Right.
Today, we have, and these numbers we know to be true because of the Palestinian surveys done by Palestinians of Palestinians, 87% of the Muslims in the Palestinian Arabs in Gaza, and actually a higher number in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, actually support Hamas. They support October 7th. And what happened? But when Israel, all of a sudden, in a war defending itself against this incursion into Israel, it's accused of this disproportionate response. And it's time for us to tell the world to go to hell. It's an absurdity that we have to be apologetic about it. The only thing we need to be apologetic about are to the parents who lost sons fighting in Gaza because we did hold back, because we didn't use indiscriminate warfare against them. If we're fighting a war against an enemy that wants us dead, you don't fight a political war, you fight a military war. You kill as many of them as you can at the risk of losing as few of your own as possible. But all of a sudden, Israel has to be apologetic. And Bibi, to the UK, mind you, he's being apologetic. Well, we fight a moral war. And he starts explaining all the things, all the steps that Israel goes to in order not to harm civilians. And I go back to one more thing. It's a point that I've made now for 2 years of this war that's 2 years and a few months old. It was about almost 2 years ago that Bibi Netanyahu decided that he was going to score points with the Western world, which was critical about Israel's going into Gaza. And he basically said, in order to try and disparage Hamas as the evil party that we're fighting, he agreed with what these Western analysts were saying, which was that the Palestinian people themselves were innocents, that they were victims as well. And the moment that Bibi Netanyahu did that,
Right.
Understandably, if any Palestinians were going to die, well, they were innocents and they were civilians, because Bibi told us it's an absurdity. What Bibi
Right.
Netanyahu should have done, and it's an embarrassment and it's pathetic, is he should have come out and said 87% of the Palestinians in Gaza and more in Judea and Samaria actually support this war to destroy the Jewish people. If you want to find out what the war is, go read Article 7 of the Hamas Charter of 1988, in which they talk about the fact that all Jews need to be killed. All Jews need to be eradicated. So it's okay in the world and with Piers Morgan that all Jews need to be eradicated against Hamas. It's Israel that needs to be scolded for fighting back. We need to tell the world to go to hell. And Bibi created this problem, and other pro-Israel advocates who talked about the fact that, yes, the Palestinians themselves are victims of Hamas. My God, they're not victims of Hamas.
Right.
They were
Right.
as supportive of Hamas as the Germans were of Hitler in 1940 and 41 and 42. And there's no need to apologize. What Israel needs to do is destroy the murderers of our children. And when I say our, I speak as a Jew and I speak as someone who was born in Israel. Israel
100%.
needs to destroy the enemy, and damn the BBC, damn the European Union, damn the United Nations, and damn the White House if, in fact, they tell Israel that it should end the war with a ceasefire, while Hamas is still operating as a terrorist organization, which only this morning was firing against Israeli troops.
Right.
This nonsense, Meir, has to stop. We have to stop being apologetic. This is another attempt by the Israelis to appease the unappeasable. They
Right.
can, and I'm going to quote Jabotinsky for the third time, they can go to hell.
Absolutely. One question to throw in. Are you aware of, I'm not, but are you aware of any comment from Piers Morgan or other anti-Semites like him, pundits, that made any kind of a recommendation how Israel should get rid of the tunnels, the Hamas tunnels?
No,
Have they said anything?
no, he's not. The one thing that Piers Morgan has said time and again, and he reminds us, in order for him to avoid this charge of being an anti-Semite or anti-Israel, he always reminds the audience. He goes to great lengths to remind the audience, I was in favor of Israel defending itself against Hamas
Yeah,
in the beginning. He
bunch
goes,
of
you can
bullshit.
check the
Yep.
record. But
Right.
the moment that Israel was too successful, when Israel was killing too many of the, then all of a sudden he goes, this is disproportionate. And it wasn't as if he became even-handed. He started to talk about the genocide that he talked about wasn't the genocide that's spoken about in Article 7 of the Hamas Charter. It's Israel defending itself against the murderers, those people who raped, brutalized, and burnt Jews alive. The mistake that we make is, and it's true of almost every advocate of a strong Israel, all these people, is
Yep.
that they painstakingly go through the trouble of trying to convince the person interviewing them, look what and they catalog all the things that Israel has done to minimize casualties. And if one Jewish soldier died, and they did, because you were trying to minimize casualties,
Yep.
you, the Israeli government, you killed him.
Right.
This is an absurdity.
Mhm.
It needs to stop. In Israel, if you look at the wars, mind you, Israel was in Gaza 2008, 2009, 2012, 2014, May of 2021, each with a ceasefire, and they kept coming back. Had Israel destroyed the enemy, when I say destroyed, I mean destroyed in the way that they want to destroy Jews. If Israel would have destroyed the enemy in 2008, 2009, December and January, the world would have condemned Israel and criticized Israel, but they wouldn't have been in 2012, and they wouldn't have been in 2014, and they wouldn't have been in 2021, and they certainly would not have been in October 7th.
100%.
We are to blame to a great degree because we've become the bootlickers that I've always complained about. The Western world becomes bootlickers. And what's remarkable, Meir, and we've talked about this so many times, Never mind the 600,000 Syrians killed by Syrians, 400,000 Sudanese, 400,000 Yemen, 130, 150,000 in Yemen. Where's the world? Where's the complaint? Where's the disproportionate? The Syrians today are butchering the Kurds in Syria.
Yep.
Okay, with the help of the Turks, and they're also going after the Druze. Where's the discussion of a disproportionate? We are stooges, and it needs to stop. Okay, Israel is a country of should be a country of King David's, not a country of Woody Allen's.
100%.
It needs to stop unapologetically. And are we angry? We're not angry enough. We're not angry enough.
100%.
There was a great book that was written, had nothing to do with Israel, but it was the great title. It was written by William Bennett. It was about Clinton, and it was called The Death of Outrage. The Death of Outrage. And that is exactly the malaise that we suffer today. Where's the outrage that the world has this double standard against Jews? Where's this outrage? We have been fighting this misbegotten war. And by the way, one last comment. It isn't as if our having taken what they call this high moral ground, which I say is an immoral ground. It isn't as if they can now turn to me and say, why don't you be quiet? Look how much in favor the world now views Israel. Look, they love us because we've been fighting this moral war. It's exactly the opposite. Israel fights what they call this moral war, the roof knocking, warning the Arabs before they drop the bombs, and on and on. We know what they've done. They bend over backwards. They drop the leaflets. We're going to bomb this. Take out your computers and your color TVs because we're going to be bombing you and everything else. We do this in exchange for what? Getting the favor of the world? We get the contempt of the world.
Right.
I keep saying one last sentence. This will be my last sentence. If you take a look at the last 77 UN resolutions, which were UN resolutions, General Assembly condemning Israel, on an average vote, these are real numbers, on an average vote, the world has voted against Israel, condemning Israel. This is an average number because they're always different, by 113 to 11. 113 against Israel, 11 in favor of Israel. And we know who those 11 are.
Yes.
Israel, the States, a couple of little islands in the Pacific. So what have we gained by being what they call moral and what I call immoral? The answer is nothing but the contempt of the world. It needs to stop. One last time, they can go to hell.
100%. Meir, thank you very much. Whoever has been watching and viewing, please share this on whatever social media platforms you use. Get involved with us. Send us an email. Go to our website, israelnow.ca. Thank you very much. Thank you, Meir.
Thank you.